Rain pelted the Austin streets like bullets, each drop exploding on impact. Through the downpour ran a small figure, blonde hair plastered against her skull, lungs burning with each desperate breath. 8-year-old Emma Miller clutched a leather wallet against her chest, as if it contained her very heart. Behind her, red and blue lights slashed through the darkness, police sirens wailing. "Stop right there, kid!" An officer shouted, his voice barely cutting through the storm. Cornered against a chain-link fence, Emma turned, her face streaked with tears and rain. 3 officers approached cautiously, flashlights blinding her. Their imposing silhouettes loomed larger in the rain, nightsticks and badges glinting in flashes of lightning. To Emma, they looked like giants from the storybooks she loved. "I just wanted to return it," Emma shouted, her voice cracking. "I just wanted to give the wallet back to who lost it." The officers exchanged confused glances as Emma held out the soaked leather wallet, her small hands trembling. Water dripped from her fingertips, mingling with tears on her face. One officer, older than the others, with salt and pepper hair visible beneath his cap, stepped forward. "Please," she whispered, "I'm not a thief." The older officer knelt to her level, rain streaming down his weathered face. "Slow down, sweetheart. Nobody's saying you're a thief. We just need to understand what's happening here." 24 hours earlier, Austin sweltered under an August sun that turned the city into a shimmering mirage of heat. Downtown, the Reynolds Energy headquarters towered 58 stories above the street, its glass exterior reflecting clouds and sky like a massive mirror. Inside the top-floor office, James Reynolds stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the city he'd conquered. At 58, James carried his age with the confidence of a man who'd fought for everything he had. His silver hair remained thick, his 6'2" frame still powerful despite the beginnings of a paunch that his tailored suits concealed. Deep lines carved into his face told stories of triumphs and failures in equal measure. His hands, large and calloused despite decades behind a desk, bore the faint scars of his early days, working the oil fields of West Texas, where he'd started as a roughneck at 19. On his polished mahogany desk, amid stacks of reports and contracts, stood a silver frame holding a photograph of a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Sarah, his first wife, dead 15 years from breast cancer. James picked up the photo, his thumb tracing her face. The silver frame had tarnished slightly on one corner, where he touched it every morning, a ritual as ingrained as his first cup of coffee. "I've made a mess of everything, Sarah," he whispered. "The company, Olivia, everything." In the photograph, Sarah wore a sundress, standing beneath an oak tree at their first house, before the money came, before the skyscraper and the corporate jets. Back when James returned home every night by 6, when dinner was non-negotiable family time, when their daughter Olivia still looked at him with adoration instead of disappointment. The intercom buzzed, shattering his moment of vulnerability. His assistant Linda's voice came through. "Mr. Reynolds, the board is waiting in the conference room. They're asking about the Shaw situation." James set the photograph down, positioning it precisely where it always stood. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." He straightened his tie, the $500 Hermes silk feeling suddenly like a noose. The Victor Shaw situation threatened everything he'd built. His chief technology officer, his friend of 20 years, caught embezzling company funds and selling proprietary technology to competitors. The betrayal stung worse than his recent divorce from Vanessa, his second wife, which had cost him $30 million, and what remained of his reputation as a family man. Worst of all was the estrangement from his daughter Olivia. 28 now, a successful attorney in New York. She hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. Not since he missed her law school graduation because of an emergency board meeting. The same meeting where he'd met Vanessa. The beginning of his second marriage and the end of his relationship with his only child. James opened the bottom drawer of his desk and removed a bottle of Tums, chewing 2 tablets to combat the familiar burning in his chest. His doctor had warned him about stress and its effects on his heart. Another thing to worry about. Another failure in the making. James grabbed his jacket and headed for the conference room, pushing thoughts of family aside. The company needed him focused. 400 employees and countless shareholders depended on his decisions. The weight of responsibility felt heavier with each passing year. Across town in the Riverside district, Emma Miller sat on the steps outside her apartment building, sketching in a tattered notebook. The complex had once been painted cheerful colors, but years of Texas sun had faded everything to a uniform dullness. Air conditioners hummed and rattled in windows, fighting a losing battle against the heat. The concrete beneath Emma radiated warmth through her worn shorts, but she barely noticed, lost in her drawing. Emma drew with intense concentration, her tongue poking slightly from the corner of her mouth. Her blonde hair was pulled into a practical ponytail, her clothes clean but worn. At 8, she carried a seriousness in her blue eyes that children shouldn't need to possess. Beneath her thin t-shirt, shoulder blades pressed against the fabric like incipient wings, evidence of too many skipped meals. The sound of a car door slamming made her look up. Her mother, Rebecca, trudged up the walkway, still wearing her waitress uniform from Denny's. At 36, Rebecca looked a decade older, her once pretty face lined with exhaustion, her body thin from skipping meals, so Emma could eat. Her Denny's name tag hung slightly crooked, the pin having bent months ago. She never had time to replace it. "Hey, sunshine." Rebecca managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Drawing something good." Emma held up her sketch of a castle with a moat and dragons. "It's where we'll live someday." The drawing showed incredible detail for a child her age, crenellated towers, pennants fluttering from turrets, even tiny guards patrolling the battlements. Rebecca's smile faltered. "That's beautiful, baby." She sat beside Emma, wincing slightly as she took weight off her swollen feet. The varicose veins had worsened this year. Standing 8-hour shifts did that. "How was your day?" "Mrs. Jackson next door let me use her computer to finish my summer project, and I read 2 more chapters of my library book." Emma didn't mention that Mrs. Jackson had also given her lunch when she realized the girl had been sitting quietly in her apartment for hours without eating. Rebecca nodded, distracted. Emma noticed an envelope sticking out of her mother's purse with red letters stamped across it. She'd seen similar notices before. "Final warning, eviction notice." The sight sent a familiar chill through her small body. They'd moved 3 times in the past 2 years, each apartment smaller than the last. "Mom, are we going to have to move again?" Rebecca sighed, tucking the envelope deeper into her bag. "Don't you worry about adult things, Em. We're going to be fine." Her voice carried the forced optimism Emma had learned to recognize. It meant things were definitely not fine. Her phone rang and Rebecca checked the caller ID. Her body tensed, shoulders drawing up toward her ears like a turtle retreating into its shell. "Emma, go inside and start your reading. Okay, I need to take this call." Emma obediently stood, but lingered by the door, watching as her mother answered the phone. Her voice shifting to a tone Emma rarely heard, deferential, almost frightened. Rebecca turned away, hunching over the phone as if to physically contain the conversation. "Yes, Ms. Hartley. No, I haven't forgotten. I understand it needs to be done this week. Yes, I still have access. I know what's at stake." Rebecca's knuckles whitened around the phone. "I'm doing my best. Please, you know my situation." Rebecca glanced toward the apartment, catching Emma watching. She quickly ended the call. "Emma Miller, didn't I tell you to go inside?" "Who's Ms. Hartley?" Emma asked, her voice small but insistent. "Just someone from my night job." Rebecca ushered Emma into their small 2-bedroom apartment, her hand gentle but firm between Emma's shoulder blades. "I need to shower and change. I have to go to my other job in an hour." Emma frowned, her small face creasing with concern, too adult for her years. "But you just got home." "I know, sunshine, but this job is important. Mrs. Jackson said she'd check on you tonight." Rebecca kissed the top of Emma's head, inhaling the scent of her daughter's hair, sunshine, and the apple shampoo they bought on sale. "I'll be home before you wake up." Inside, the apartment was meticulously clean despite its shabbiness. Rebecca had painted the walls herself in bright colors, hung curtains made from discount fabric, and arranged secondhand furniture with an eye for comfort. She'd done everything possible to make it feel like a home. Emma's crayon drawings hung in inexpensive frames arranged in a careful gallery on the living room wall. A bookshelf made from cinder blocks and planks held library books and the few treasured volumes they owned. As Rebecca showered, Emma quietly opened her mother's purse and examined the eviction notice. 2 months behind on rent. Final warning before court proceedings. Emma's chest tightened, the familiar anxiety stealing her breath. She'd overheard her mother on the phone with the doctor last week, too, discussing payment plans for Emma's ongoing treatment. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Not life-threatening, but expensive to manage. On bad days, her joints swelled and ached until she couldn't hold a pencil or climb the stairs to their apartment. Emma carefully replaced the notice and closed the purse. She knew her mother worked 3 jobs now. Waitressing in the morning office, cleaning in the evenings, and something else at night that Rebecca never discussed. Something that made her come home with shadows under her eyes and a tremor in her hands. Something that made her cry in the bathroom when she thought Emma was asleep. After her mother left for her second job, Emma sat by the window sketching and watching the street below. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous exactly, but Rebecca had strict rules about not going out alone after dark. Emma understood more than her mother realized. She understood they were poor. She understood her medical bills strained their budget. She understood her mother was killing herself, working to keep them afloat. The knowledge weighed on her small shoulders, a burden no child should bear. A sharp knock at the door startled her. Mrs. Jackson, their elderly neighbor, stood in the hallway with a plate covered in foil. 73 and widowed with kind eyes behind thick glasses, she'd appointed herself Emma's unofficial grandmother. "Your mama asked me to bring you some dinner, child," she said, handing Emma the plate. "Roast chicken and potatoes. Make sure you eat the vegetables, too." "Thank you, Mrs. Jackson." Emma took the plate, the warm weight of it comforting in her hands. "Your mama working late again?" Emma nodded, looking down at her scuffed sneakers. Mrs. Jackson clicked her tongue. "That woman works too hard, but she's a good mother. You doing okay with your condition today?" "It's just a little achy," Emma said, downplaying the throbbing in her knees and fingers. "The medicine helps." Mrs. Jackson studied her with knowing eyes. "Good girl. You need anything, you knock on my door, you hear." She patted Emma's cheek with a papery hand. "Don't you be sitting up, waiting for your mama. She wouldn't want that." After dinner, Emma took her medication, washed her dishes, and got ready for bed, performing the evening routine with the self-sufficiency of a much older child. Before sleep, she looked at the only photograph on her nightstand, herself as a toddler, with her mother and father. The father she barely remembered, who'd left when she was 3. Her mother never spoke badly of him, only saying he wasn't ready for family life. In the photo, he looked young and scared, his arm around Rebecca stiff, as if he might bolt at any moment. Emma sometimes wondered if he ever thought about her, if he knew about her condition, if he cared. The next morning, Emma woke early. Her mother's bed was empty, still made from the day before. Rebecca sometimes worked overnight shifts and went straight to her morning job. Emma dressed herself, ate cereal, and packed her backpack with her library book and sketch pad. Rebecca had left $20 on the counter with a note, "For lunch this week, I love you. Be good." Emma carefully folded the money into her pocket. $5 a day for lunch. She'd make it stretch by buying just milk at school and saving the rest. Maybe she could help with the rent that way. A small contribution, but every dollar mattered in their precarious existence. The August heat was building as Emma walked to the bus stop. She planned to spend the day at the public library downtown where it was air-conditioned. The librarians knew her by name now, this serious little girl who came alone and read for hours. Ms. Peterson always saved new fantasy books for her, and Mr. Gonzalez helped with her summer reading projects. They never asked why she came alone or stayed all day. Emma suspected they knew, but respected her enough not to mention it. At the bus stop on Rosewood Avenue, Emma sat on a metal bench that burned through her thin shorts. No one else waited in the morning heat. Across the street, a coffee shop door opened, and a tall man in an expensive suit emerged, talking heatedly on a phone. Even from a distance, he radiated importance and authority. His silver hair caught the sunlight, and his deep voice carried across the quiet street. "The board meeting is in 3 hours, Linda," James Reynolds barked into his phone as he left the coffee shop. "I need those projections before then. Victor's misconduct has put us in a precarious position." He paced as he spoke, his free hand gesturing emphatically. "Tell legal I want every document from the last 2 years reviewed. Every email, every contract. If Victor thought he could sell our technology without leaving a trail, he was mistaken." He ended the call, frustration evident in every movement. As he reached for his car keys, he dropped his wallet without noticing. The black leather rectangle fell silently beside his car, partially hidden by the vehicle's shadow. James climbed into his Mercedes and drove away, oblivious to his loss. Emma noticed. She watched the wallet lying there on the sidewalk, untouched, as people walked past. After 10 minutes, when no one claimed it, she crossed the street. The wallet lay exactly where it had fallen, expensive leather, warm from the sun. Emma picked it up, feeling the weight of it in her hands. The leather was buttery soft, unlike anything she'd ever touched. This wasn't like the plastic wallets at the dollar store. This belonged to someone important. She should find a police officer, she thought. But the police station was miles away, and she knew from experience that adults often dismiss children. They'd take the wallet, and she'd never know if it reached its owner. She opened it, intending only to find identification. Her breath caught. Inside lay more cash than she'd ever seen. Crisp $100 bills, at least 50 of them. $5,000. More than enough for rent, enough for 6 months of her medication, enough to let her mother rest. The money seemed unreal, like play currency from a board game. Who carried this much cash? It was more than her mother made in 3 months of working 3 jobs. Emma's heart pounded. No one had seen her pick it up. No one would know if she took the money. They were about to be evicted. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over the bills. The temptation squeezed her chest like a vice. With this money, her mother wouldn't look so tired all the time. With this money, they could afford her treatment without payment plans. With this money, they could breathe. Then she noticed a business card in a side pocket. Heavy cream-colored cardstock, or broom, with raised lettering. James Reynolds, Chief Executive Officer, Reynolds Energy Corporation. An address in downtown Austin. Emma remembered her mother's words from years earlier. Integrity means doing the right thing even when no one is watching, even when doing the wrong thing would be easier or help us. Because once you take something that doesn't belong to you, it changes who you are inside. Rebecca had been teaching Emma to return extra change at stores since she was 5. We might need that dollar more than the stores, she'd explained, but it's not ours to take. Even when they'd gone to bed hungry, her mother had never compromised on honesty. She closed the wallet, decision made. Her mother had sacrificed everything to raise her with values. Emma wouldn't throw that away, not even for $5,000. She would return the wallet to its rightful owner. The downtown bus would cost $4 round trip. That meant only $1 left for lunch today and nothing for tomorrow. Emma hesitated, then reached into her pocket and removed the $20. She wouldn't be a thief. She would return the wallet even if it meant going hungry. On the 40-minute bus ride downtown, Emma pressed her forehead against the window, watching Austin transform. Her neighborhood with its small apartments and dollar stores gave way to increasingly taller buildings and cleaner streets. People's clothing changed too. More suits, fewer work uniforms, and casual clothes. The air conditioning on the bus made her shiver after the outdoor heat, raising goosebumps on her thin arms. The Reynolds Energy building dominated the skyline, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Emma had seen it from a distance, but never up close. Standing at its base, she felt tiny and insignificant. The revolving doors seemed designed to keep people like her out. Men and women in business attire strode purposefully in and out, none sparing a glance for the small girl clutching a backpack and a wallet. Emma gathered her courage and approached the security desk in the vast marble lobby. The guard, a large man with a stern expression and a nameplate reading Dawson, looked down at her with suspicion. "Can I help you, young lady?" His voice echoed in the cavernous space. "I need to see Mr. James Reynolds, please," Emma said, trying to sound confident despite her racing heart. The guard smirked, exchanging an amused glance with another security officer. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I found his wallet." She held it up as proof. The guard's expression changed to surprise, then suspicion. "Let me see that." He took the wallet, opened it, and his eyebrows rose at the cash inside. He examined the ID and business cards, his professional demeanor returning as he realized this was legitimate. "Where did you find this?" "Outside Coffee Republic on Rosewood Avenue, about an hour ago." "And you didn't take anything from it?" His eyes narrowed, studying her worn clothes, her scuffed shoes. Emma felt her face flush with indignation. "No, sir." She met his gaze steadily, refusing to look away despite the implication. The guard studied her for a moment longer, then picked up his phone. "Francine, I have a young girl down here who claims to have found Mr. Reynolds' wallet." He listened, his eyes still on Emma. "Yes, with everything still in it, apparently." Another pause. "I'll send her up with Tanner." Another security officer, younger with a friendlier face, approached. "I'll escort her upstairs." The elevator operator, an elderly man with a kind smile, winked at Emma as they entered the mirrored car. 58th floor, Tanner instructed. Ms. Westfield's desk. The elevator rose smoothly, Emma's stomach dropping with the rapid ascent. The entire car was paneled in dark wood and brass, more elegant than any room in her apartment. She caught sight of herself in the mirrored wall, small and out of place in this world of wealth and power. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin. Her clothes might be worn, but her mother had taught her dignity. When the doors opened, she stepped into a reception area with plush carpeting and modern art on the walls. A severe-looking woman in her 40s that behind a curved desk, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her makeup was flawless, her navy suit expensive and tailored. "This is the girl with Mr. Reynolds' wallet," the security officer explained before retreating to the elevator. The woman, Francine Westfield, according to her desk nameplate, scrutinized Emma with undisguised skepticism. Her eyes, a cold blue, took in Emma's appearance with a quick assessing sweep. "You found Mr. Reynolds' wallet." Her voice was crisp, professional, but tinged with disbelief. Emma nodded, holding it out. And you're telling me you didn't take anything from it? There was quite a bit of cash inside. Francine didn't reach for the wallet, watching Emma's face instead. I didn't take anything, Emma repeated, frustration building. Why did adults always assume children were lying? What's your name? Emma Miller. And your parents sent you here alone? My mom's at work. I came by myself. Emma didn't mention the bus ride or the lunch money spent. Adults rarely understood the independence forced on children by necessity. Francine's expression hardened. Wait here. She took the wallet and disappeared through a set of double doors. Emma stood awkwardly in the reception area, acutely aware of her worn clothes and scuffed sneakers. Everything here looked expensive and untouchable. The carpet alone probably cost more than their entire apartment. On the walls hung photographs of oil rigs, solar panels, and wind turbines alongside framed newspaper articles about Reynolds Energy. Awards and certificates filled one entire wall: Business Leader of the Year, Energy Innovation Prizes, Community Service Recognition. The double doors opened and James Reynolds himself emerged, wallet in hand. In person, he was more intimidating than Emma had imagined, tall and broad-shouldered, with penetrating gray eyes that seemed to look straight through her. His suit, a deep charcoal gray, fit him perfectly. His presence filled the room, making even the spacious reception area feel smaller. You're the one who found my wallet. His voice was deep, authoritative. Emma nodded, suddenly unable to speak. James opened the wallet, counting the cash with quick practice movements. His eyebrows rose slightly. $5,400. Exactly what I withdrew yesterday from my contractor. He looked at Emma with new interest. Most people would have kept this. Emma found her voice. My mom says taking things that don't belong to you changes who you are inside. A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps respect, crossed James's face. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. Where is she now? At work. She has 3 jobs. James glanced at Francine, then back to Emma. How did you get here? I took the bus. From where? Riverside District, near Pleasant Valley Road. James seemed to make a decision. What's your name? Emma Miller. Well, Emma Miller, I think your honesty deserves more than a thank you. Would you like a tour of the building before I have my driver take you home? Emma's eyes widened. You do that? For the first time, James smiled, transforming his stern face. Lines crinkled around his eyes, softening his expression. I insist. The tour was brief but impressive. James showed Emma the engineering department where new energy technologies were developed, the massive trading floor where electricity was bought and sold across the country, and finally his executive suite with its panoramic view of Austin. Along the way, employees greeted him with respect, bordering on reverence, though Emma noticed the curious glances they cast at the small girl accompanying the CEO. In his office, James watched as Emma stared out the windows in amazement. There was something refreshing about her unguarded reactions, her earnest questions. In his world of corporate politics and backstabbing, her simple honesty felt like a cool drink in the desert. When was the last time anyone had spoken to him without an agenda? When had anyone looked him in the eye without calculation or fear? That's my school, Emma pointed to a distant building. And over there is the library where I go most days. She traced the path with her finger on the glass, mapping her small world within the sprawling city below. You like to read? James settled into his leather chair, genuinely curious. Yes, sir. I'm reading about knights and castles right now. King Arthur and the Round Table. Her face lit up with enthusiasm. The librarians let me read whatever I want, even from the grown-up section if it's not inappropriate. James noticed a slight wince as Emma shifted her weight. Are you okay? Emma nodded quickly. Just my knees. I have JRA, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Some days are better than others. That must be difficult. Emma shrugged with the resilience of childhood. It's okay. The medicine helps when we can afford it. She immediately looked down as if regretting the admission. James felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. This child who had nothing had returned $5,000 without hesitation despite physical pain and obvious financial need. The contrast with Victor Shaw, his trusted executive, who had everything and still chose to steal, couldn't be more stark. My driver will take us to your home now. I'd like to meet your mother and thank her for raising such an honest daughter. In the back of James's luxury sedan, Emma gave directions to their apartment complex. As they left downtown, the neighborhoods grew progressively shabbier. By the time they reached Riverside, James was seeing a side of Austin rarely visited by men of his status. The contrast with his own neighborhood in Westlake Hills couldn't be more pronounced. Their manicured lawns stretched before multi-million-dollar homes. Here, cracked sidewalks fronted buildings in various states of disrepair. Emma's apartment complex had faded stucco, cracked sidewalks, and window air conditioning units dripping condensation. Children played in the courtyard with makeshift toys, and elderly residents sat in whatever shade they could find. A group of teenagers loitered by a broken fence, watching the luxury car with undisguised interest. "It's here," Emma said unnecessarily as the car stopped. She led James up a concrete staircase to the second floor. The apartment door opened before they reached it. Rebecca Miller stood in the doorway, still in her waitress uniform, her expression shifting from worry to confusion to alarm as she saw her daughter accompanied by a stranger in an expensive suit. "Emma, what's going on? Who is this?" Her voice held exhaustion and wariness. "Mom, this is Mr. Reynolds. I found his wallet today and returned it." James extended his hand. "James Reynolds, your daughter returned over $5,000 to me today without taking a penny. I wanted to thank you personally for raising such an exceptional child." Rebecca shook his hand automatically, still processing. Her eyes widened at the amount. "She returned your wallet." It wasn't a question, but a statement of pride. "May I come in? I'd like to speak with you." Rebecca hesitated, glancing around their modest apartment as if seeing it through his eyes. "We don't get many visitors." "I won't stay long." She stepped aside, allowing him entry. Inside, James was struck by the contrast between the building's decay and the apartment's careful maintenance. The furniture was old but clean, the walls freshly painted in bright colors. Books lined makeshift shelves, and Emma's artwork decorated the refrigerator. It was a home created through effort and love. "Please sit down," Rebecca offered, her hospitality overcoming embarrassment. James sat on a worn but clean sofa. Emma disappeared into her bedroom, sensing the adults needed to talk. "Your daughter is remarkable," James began. "Not many adults would have returned that wallet intact, let alone a child who could clearly use the money." Rebecca's chin lifted slightly. "We may not have much, Mr. Reynolds, but we have our integrity." The phrase echoed Emma's earlier words, and James felt a pang of recognition. How long had it been since integrity factored into his own decision-making? Somewhere between building his empire and losing his family, principles had become negotiable. The bottom-line shareholder value market position, these had become his guiding stars, not the fundamental decency his parents had instilled in him on their modest farm in East Texas. "I'd like to give Emma a reward," he said, reaching for his wallet. The gesture was automatic, the solution of a man accustomed to solving problems with money. Rebecca's expression hardened. "We don't need charity." "It's not charity, it's—" "With all due respect, Mr. Reynolds, whatever you call it, it would teach Emma the wrong lesson. She did the right thing because it was right, not for a reward." James studied Rebecca more carefully. Despite her obvious exhaustion, her eyes held intelligence and pride. Her hands were rough from work, but her posture remained dignified. She wore her poverty with a grace that humbled him. "Have we met before?" he asked suddenly. Rebecca hesitated. "Yes. I worked at Reynolds Energy for 3 years in the operations department. I was part of the mass layoffs 2 years ago when the company restructured." James felt a jolt of recognition, followed by shame. 2 years ago, during his divorce from Vanessa, he'd authorized Victor Shaw to cut costs by eliminating 300 positions. He'd never looked at the names, never considered the lives affected by a decision made in a boardroom while discussing profit margins. "I'm sorry," he said, the words feeling wholly inadequate. Rebecca shrugged. "Business decisions, I understand how it works. What have you been doing since?" "Whatever I can, waitressing mornings at Denny's, cleaning offices evenings, other work at night." Her vague reference to her third job raised questions in James's mind, but her tone discouraged inquiry. "And Emma's father? Left when she was 3. No child support, no contact." Her voice remained neutral, but James caught the slight tightening around her eyes, the only indication of old pain. James had made a decision. "Ms. Miller, my company has an opening in facilities operations management. The position requires organization, attention to detail, and practical problem solving. Given your previous experience with us, would you be interested?" Rebecca stared at him, suspicion warring with hope. "Why would you offer me a job?" "Because I need someone in that position, and because your daughter's actions suggest you're someone with principles. Those are increasingly rare in my experience." He paused. "The salary is $80,000 a year with full benefits, including comprehensive health insurance." Rebecca's composure faltered for the first time. "Health insurance?" "Yes. Coverage would begin immediately for both you and Emma." James saw the calculation in her eyes, no more choosing between rent and medication. No more triple shifts, no more whatever the night job entailed. The struggle between pride and practicality played across her face. I don't want special treatment, she said finally. If I take this position, I want it because I'm qualified. Review your personnel file tonight. If you were qualified 2 years ago, you're qualified now. James stood extending his business card. Come to my office tomorrow at 9. We'll discuss details. As James walked back into his car, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The simple satisfaction of doing something unambiguously good. No political calculations, no profit margins, just helping someone deserving. His steps felt lighter, his chronic indigestion momentarily forgotten. His phone vibrated. Linda, his assistant. Mr. Reynolds, the board is asking if you have a statement prepared about Victor Shaw. Reality crashed back. Tell them I'll address everything at the meeting. As the car pulled away, James glanced back at the apartment building. Emma waved from the window, a small figure in a world that had given her few breaks. He waved back, something shifting in his chest. For a moment, he thought of Olivia at that age, before boarding school, before the divorce, before everything went wrong. The similarities struck him with unexpected force, the serious blue eyes, the old soul wisdom, the unflinching honesty. He wondered if Olivia still thought about him, if she ever missed him the way he missed her. In her bedroom, Emma heard her mother on the phone again, her voice urgent and distressed. I can't do it now, Ms. Hartley. Things have changed. No, I understand what you've done for us, but... Rebecca's voice dropped lower. Please, I need more time. From the living room window, Rebecca watched James's car disappear. She hadn't told him about her connection to his ex-wife, Vanessa Hartley, or about the documents Vanessa had demanded she steal from Reynolds Energy. Documents that would destroy James's company and reputation. The flash drive hidden in her underwear drawer felt like a time bomb. Rebecca ended the call, her hands shaking. She had until the end of the week to deliver what Vanessa wanted, or the woman had promised to ensure Emma never received medical treatment again. Somehow Vanessa had discovered Rebecca's past misdemeanor conviction for check fraud, a desperate act during Emma's first major health crisis, and held it over her head. Mom. Emma appeared in the doorway. Are you okay? Rebecca forced a smile. I'm fine, sunshine. Everything's going to be fine. Her daughter's trust felt like a knife in her heart. How would Emma look at her if she knew the truth that her mother had been working for Vanessa Hartley for months, gathering confidential information from Reynolds Energy's cleaning staff? Photographs of documents left on desks, recordings of conversations. That the third job wasn't cleaning at all, but corporate espionage. Outside the apartment complex, a sleek black Audi idled across the street. Behind the tinted windows, Vanessa Hartley lowered her designer sunglasses, watching James's car drive away. At 45, she remained stunningly beautiful, her dark hair perfectly styled, her features aristocratic. The 3-carat diamond on her finger, part of her divorce settlement, caught the sunlight as she lifted her phone. Interesting, she murmured, lifting her phone to snap a photo. Very interesting indeed. Her marriage to James had lasted just 18 months, but the bitterness of their divorce had poisoned her for the 2 years since. James had been smart, protected by a prenuptial agreement, but Vanessa was smarter. She'd found leverage in the most unexpected place, a desperate single mother with a sick child and a past mistake. Vanessa smiled, scrolling through her contacts to find Victor Shaw's number. The CTO might have been caught, but their plan was still in motion. James Reynolds would lose everything just as he deserved. His company, his reputation, and now, judging by his unexpected interest in Rebecca Miller, perhaps his heart as well. The Reynolds Energy boardroom fell silent as James entered. 12 executives in tailored suits sat around a gleaming mahogany table, their faces a mixture of concern and calculation. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Austin, but no one was admiring the scenery. At the far end of the table, Victor Shaw's chair remained conspicuously empty. Gentlemen, ladies, James nodded, taking his position at the head of the table. I believe we all know why we're here. Elizabeth Chen, the company's executive vice president, spoke first. James, the financial press, is already sniffing around. We need to get ahead of this. James studied Elizabeth. At 52, she'd been with Reynolds Energy almost since its inception. A brilliant financial strategist with an uncompromising ethical code, she was one of the few people James still trusted implicitly. What we need, James replied, is to understand the full scope of Victor's actions before we make any public statements. His voice remained steady, betraying none of the rage and betrayal churning inside him. Legal is reviewing every contract, every transaction Victor touched in the past 2 years. Jason Miller, the company's young CFO, cleared his throat. We're looking at potential losses in the hundreds of millions if our proprietary solar technology has been compromised. At 35, Jason possessed a razor-sharp mind for numbers and ambition that sometimes made James uneasy. And the SEC will be all over us, added Thomas Garrett from legal. Even though Shaw acted alone, they'll scrutinize our entire operation. James absorbed their concerns, his expression revealing nothing. For 30 years, he'd cultivated the poker face that had served him through oil price crashes, recessions, and technological revolutions. We will cooperate fully with any investigation. Reynolds Energy has nothing to hide. He didn't mention his personal devastation. Victor had been more than his CTO. He'd been a friend, a confidant, a drinking buddy. The betrayal felt like losing a brother. The meeting dragged on for 3 hours, each department head outlining potential damage and mitigation strategies. Throughout, James's phone vibrated discreetly in his pocket, Linda reminding him of his 9 o'clock appointment with Rebecca Miller. When he finally escaped the boardroom, Linda intercepted him in the hallway. Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Miller has been waiting in reception for 20 minutes. James checked his watch, 9:32. Bring her to my office and apologize for the delay. Rebecca Miller sat perched on the edge of a visitor's chair in James's office, her back straight, hands folded neatly in her lap. She dressed carefully in her best clothes, a simple navy skirt and white blouse she'd ironed twice that morning. Her resume lay on the desk, crisp and professionally formatted, at the public library's computer lab the night before. When James entered, she stood immediately smoothing her skirt with nervous hands. Ms. Miller, I apologize for keeping you waiting. Board issues. He gestured for her to sit again as he took his own seat. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Reynolds. Her voice was composed despite the anxiety evident in her eyes. James studied her in the morning light filtering through his windows. Without the waitress uniform and the exhaustion of a double shift, Rebecca Miller was a striking woman. Intelligence shone in her hazel eyes, and her features, though strained by years of hardship, retained a quiet dignity. I've reviewed your personnel file, he said, tapping a folder on his desk. Your performance reviews were excellent during your time with us. Attention to detail, problem-solving skills, ability to streamline processes. The only criticism was that you sometimes work too many hours. A faint smile touched Rebecca's lips. I've never been good at saying no to work that needs doing. That's evident in how you've managed since the layoffs. James leaned forward. 3 jobs to support your daughter, maintain your home, pay for medical treatments. That shows remarkable determination. Rebecca's smile faded. You do what you have to for your child. The simple statement hung in the air, an unintended indictment of his own failings as a father. James cleared his throat. The facilities operations manager position requires someone who can oversee building maintenance security protocols, energy efficiency initiatives, and staff management for our entire headquarters. It's a significant responsibility. He paused. Are you prepared for that challenge? Yes. No hesitation, no qualification, just quiet confidence. You'll report directly to Elizabeth Chen, our EVP. The salary we discussed, along with full benefits, company phone, and access to the corporate wellness center. He slid a contract across the desk. You can start immediately. Rebecca scanned the document, her eyes widening slightly at the compensation package. For a moment, her composure cracked, revealing the weight of years of financial struggle. This is very generous, she said finally, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. It's market rate for the position and your qualifications. James stood, extending his hand. Welcome back to Reynolds Energy, Ms. Miller. Rebecca's handshake was firm, her palm calloused from years of manual labor. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I won't let you down. As she left his office, James watched her go, wondering at the strange twist of fate that had connected them through Emma's act of honesty. For the first time in months, something in his life felt unequivocally right. Rebecca's first week at Reynolds Energy passed in a blur of orientation meetings, introductions, and system access setups. She absorbed information like a sponge, asking insightful questions that impressed her new colleagues. By Friday, she'd already identified 3 inefficiencies in the building's energy usage and proposed practical solutions. But beneath her professional demeanor, anxiety gnawed at her constantly. Each night she returned to the apartment where Emma waited with Mrs. Jackson, and each night she checked her phone for messages from Vanessa Hartley. The woman hadn't called since Rebecca accepted the Reynolds Energy position, but her silence felt more threatening than her demands. On Friday evening, Rebecca arrived home to find Emma sitting at their small kitchen table, homework spread before her. The apartment smelled of spaghetti sauce, Mrs. Jackson's contribution to dinner. Mom, Emma jumped up for a hug. How was work today? Rebecca embraced her daughter, inhaling the clean scent of her hair. Good sunshine, really good. I learned the security system today, and I have my own office with a window. Emma beamed. Did you take a picture? I want to see it. I did. Rebecca pulled out her phone, showing Emma photos of her modest but neat office. And guess what? The company has a program where employees' children can come visit. Would you like to see where I work sometime? Yes. Emma's enthusiasm made Rebecca's heart clench. Her daughter had so few special experiences. After dinner bath and bedtime reading, Rebecca tucked Emma in. I'm proud of you, Mom, Emma whispered as Rebecca kissed her forehead. You look happier. When Emma was asleep, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table staring at her phone. Finally, she made the call she'd been dreading. I was wondering when I'd hear from you, Vanessa's cool voice answered. Enjoying your new position. Rebecca gripped the phone tighter. I can't get you what you want anymore. I'm not on the cleaning crew. I don't have access to private documents. On the contrary, darling, you have better access now. Vanessa's tone remained pleasant, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. Executive floor security clearance after hours access. It's perfect. I won't do it. I can't betray. Let me stop you right there. Vanessa's voice hardened. You seem to be forgetting our arrangement. I have evidence of your little check fraud incident. One call to the police and Emma loses her mother to jail. One call to your new employer about your criminal past and you lose that lovely job with health insurance. Is that what you want? Rebecca closed her eyes, nausea rising in her throat. What do you want from me? Access to James's private server. That's where he keeps the proprietary technology data. Get me that and our arrangement ends. You'll never hear from me again. I need time to figure out how. You have 1 week, Vanessa hung up. Rebecca placed her phone on the table with shaking hands. She'd escaped poverty only to find herself trapped in a different kind of prison. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so devastating. Monday morning brought new challenges at Reynolds Energy. Rebecca arrived early, determined to prove herself, despite the sword hanging over her head. As she reviewed maintenance schedules in her office, a shadow fell across her desk. So you're the new hire. The man standing in her doorway was trim attractive with sharp features and calculating eyes. Jason Miller, CFO. Rebecca stood to shake his hand. Rebecca Miller, Facilities Operations Manager. No relation, I hope. His smile didn't reach his eyes. James seems quite taken with you. Fast-tracked your hiring, bypassed HR protocols. Very unusual for him. The implication hung in the air between them. Rebecca met his gaze steadily. Mr. Reynolds hired me based on my qualifications and past performance with the company. Of course. Jason's tone suggested otherwise. Just curious about the coincidence. You were laid off 2 years ago, then suddenly rehired at triple your previous salary. After your daughter returned his wallet. He shrugged. People talk. I understand office politics, Mr. Miller. But I'm here to work, not gossip. Rebecca's voice remained professional, despite her racing heart. This man was dangerous, ambitious, and resentful of perceived favoritism. Fair enough. Jason lingered in the doorway. Just so you know, James has a soft spot for lost causes. First Victor Shaw, now you. Let's hope his judgment is better this time around. After he left, Rebecca sat heavily in her chair, the interaction leaving her shaken. She hadn't expected to make enemies so quickly. And the comparison to Victor Shaw, the disgraced executive who'd betrayed James, stung worse than Jason could know. Throughout the day, Rebecca felt eyes following her. Not everyone, but enough to make her uncomfortable. By lunchtime, she needed escape. She took the elevator to the ground floor and walked to a nearby park seeking fresh air and perspective. Mind if I join you? Rebecca looked up to find Elizabeth Chen standing beside her bench, a salad container in hand. Of course not. Rebecca moved her purse to make room. Elizabeth settled beside her, arranging her pencil skirt neatly. I saw you escape. First week can be overwhelming. It's not the work, Rebecca admitted. It's the scrutiny. Elizabeth nodded. Jason Miller making his presence known. Rebecca's surprise must have shown on her face because Elizabeth smiled knowingly. Jason considers himself James's protege, but he wanted to bring in his own person for your position. Your hiring disrupted his plans. Elizabeth speared a piece of lettuce. Don't let him intimidate you. James doesn't make personnel decisions lightly regardless of what others might imply. I appreciate the insight. Rebecca hesitated. I don't want special treatment. I just want to do my job well. Then do it. Results speak louder than gossip. Elizabeth studied her. You know, James hasn't seemed this present in months. Whatever your daughter did by returning that wallet, it affected him deeply. Rebecca absorbed this information, unsure how to respond. The knowledge that she was betraying this man's trust would be forced to betray it further, set like poison in her stomach. When she returned to her office, she found a meeting request on her computer calendar. Security Systems Overview Server Room Access Protocols. The very thing Vanessa wanted her to learn. The universe seemed determined to test her integrity at every turn. That evening, James found himself driving toward the Riverside district again. He told himself it was a spontaneous decision, but the chess set on the passenger seat betrayed planning. He'd spotted it in a store window at lunch, a hand-carved wooden set with pieces that would feel substantial in a child's hands. A gift for Emma. He parked outside the apartment complex, noting the broken security door, the cracked sidewalk, the teenagers eyeing his luxury car. A glimpse into a world he normally observed only through economic statistics and demographic reports. Mrs. Jackson answered Rebecca's door, surprise evident on her lined face. Mr. Reynolds, she stammered, clearly recognizing him despite never having met. Rebecca's not home yet. She called to say she's running late at work. I actually came to see Emma, if that's all right. Mrs. Jackson hesitated only briefly before calling over her shoulder. Emma, honey, you have a visitor. Emma appeared in the doorway, her expression brightening when she saw James. Mr. Reynolds' mom said you're her new boss. I am, and I brought you something. He held up the chess set. I thought perhaps you might like to learn. Emma's eyes widened. You want to teach me? If you'd like. Mrs. Jackson smiled, stepping aside. I'll be next door if you need me, Emma. Your mom should be home within the hour. James entered the apartment, suddenly self-conscious. What was he doing here, really? The chess set was an excuse, but for what? Connection redemption. A substitute for the relationship he'd destroyed with his own daughter. Emma cleared the kitchen table eagerly, making space for the chess set. As James arranged the pieces, explaining each one's movement and value, he found himself relaxing. Emma proved a quick study, asking intelligent questions, her face intent with concentration. My dad taught me chess when I was about your age, James explained as they played. He said it teaches you to think several moves ahead in life. Was he good at it? Emma captured one of his pawns with a triumphant smile. The best I knew. James moved his knight. He worked the oil fields all his life, but he had a strategic mind. Do you still play with him? He passed away 15 years ago, heart attack. Emma's face softened with empathy beyond her years. That's sad. Do you miss him? The directness of a child cutting through social niceties to the heart of things. Every day, James admitted, especially when I have difficult decisions to make. I often wonder what he would advise. Like with the man who stole from your company, James raised an eyebrow. You hear more than people realize, don't you? Emma shrugged. Mom tries not to talk about work stuff around me, but I can tell it's complicated. It is complicated. James moved his bishop deliberately, setting up an opportunity for Emma. Victor was my friend for 20 years. I trusted him completely. And he took stuff that wasn't his. Yes, valuable information that belonged to the company. Emma frowned at the board, considering her move. Did it change who he was inside, like my mom says about taking things? The question caught James off guard. I think it revealed who he always was, he said finally. That's the hardest part to accept. Emma nodded seriously, then moved her queen, taking James's bishop just as he'd intended. Check, she announced proudly. James smiled deliberately, overlooking a defensive move. Well played. When Rebecca arrived home 40 minutes later, she froze in the doorway, taking in the scene before her. Her daughter and her boss heads bent over a chess game at her kitchen table, both so absorbed they hadn't heard her enter. Mom! Emma looked up, eyes bright with excitement. Mr. Reynolds is teaching me chess, and I almost beat him. James stood suddenly awkward. I hope this is all right. I brought the chess set for Emma, and Mrs. Jackson let me in. Rebecca managed to smile despite her confusion. Of course, that's very kind of you. James gathered his jacket. I should be going. Thank you for the game, Emma. Next time I won't go so easy on you. Emma giggled. You didn't go easy. I'm just naturally talented. After James left, Rebecca helped Emma put away the chess set. That was unexpected, she said carefully. He's nice, Emma replied. Not like you'd expect a super rich person to be. And he told me about his daughter who doesn't talk to him anymore. Rebecca paused. He told you about that. He said he made mistakes because he worked too much instead of spending time with her. And now she won't forgive him. Emma looked thoughtful. That's sad, isn't it? To have a dad who wants to see you but can't. The innocent observation landed like a stone in Rebecca's chest. Here was James Reynolds flawed but reaching out to her daughter while carrying the pain of losing his own. And here was Rebecca preparing to betray him because of Vanessa's blackmail. The server room access training, scheduled for Wednesday morning, became a ticking clock in Rebecca's mind. Each hour brought her closer to a moral precipice. She performed her duties with mechanical precision, all while scanning for escape routes from her impossible situation. On Tuesday afternoon, a maintenance emergency in the executive wing provided unexpected insight. As technicians repaired a burst pipe in the ceiling near James's office, Rebecca coordinated the response, ensuring minimal disruption. James had vacated his office for the repairs, working temporarily from a conference room down the hall. While supervising the cleanup, Rebecca noticed James's executive assistant, Linda, accessing his computer. He needed files sent to him, Linda explained, catching Rebecca's glance. I have his emergency access credentials for situations like this. Emergency access credentials. The phrase lodged in Rebecca's mind. A potential solution, but one requiring Linda's trust or deception. That night, Rebecca sat on her bed long after Emma had fallen asleep, Vanessa's ultimatum replaying in her mind. She could steal the credentials somehow. She could plant a keylogger on James's computer. She could use her new security clearance to access the server room directly. All paths led to betrayal. All paths threatened the stability she just established for Emma. All paths ended with her becoming the very thing she taught her daughter never to be, a thief changing who she was inside. Morning brought no clarity, only the leaden certainty that time was running out. Rebecca arrived at work early, hoping solitude might reveal an answer. Instead, she found James in the hallway outside her office, coffee in hand. You're here before the sun, he observed, offering a cup. I thought you might need this. Rebecca accepted the coffee, surprised by the thoughtfulness. Thank you, I had trouble sleeping. Work, concerns. Partly. She took a sip, buying time. It's a big adjustment from where I was. James nodded. I remember my first executive position. Felt like an imposter for months. He studied her over his cup. You're doing exceptional work, Rebecca. The energy efficiency proposals you submitted yesterday will save us nearly $200,000 annually. Pride warmed her briefly before guilt extinguished it. That's just the beginning. There are more inefficiencies to address. I have no doubt. James hesitated. I hope my visit yesterday wasn't inappropriate. Emma is a remarkable child. She reminds me of my daughter at that age. She enjoyed it very much. The chess set was incredibly generous. It was selfish, actually. James's admission carried a rare vulnerability. I miss teaching. I miss connection. He cleared his throat. In any case, I wanted to invite you both to the company picnic this Saturday. It's an annual tradition, family-friendly. Emma might enjoy it. The invitation, so normal, so decent, twisted the knife of Rebecca's predicament. That's very kind. We'd like that. James nodded, seemingly pleased. Good. I'll have Linda send you the details. He checked his watch. I should get to my morning calls. Have a good day, Rebecca. As he walked away, Rebecca felt Vanessa's noose tightening around her neck. James Reynolds was not the corporate villain his ex-wife had painted. He was a flawed man trying in his imperfect way to do better. The server room training that afternoon was comprehensive and technical. Rebecca absorbed the information while maintaining a professional demeanor, all the while sickened by the knowledge of how she might use it. The security officer explained access protocols, environmental controls, backup systems, and emergency procedures. Any questions, Ms. Miller? He asked as they finished the tour. Rebecca pointed to the biometric scanner. Who has access besides IT personnel? C-suite executives only. CP, CEO, CTO, CIO, CFO, and now you for facilities emergency purposes. He demonstrated her limited access. Your credentials only work in conjunction with a documented maintenance request or an active alarm. One more door closing on Vanessa's demand. Rebecca felt simultaneous relief and dread. As she returned to her office, Rebecca nearly collided with Jason Miller in the hallway. The CFO steadied her with a hand on her arm, holding contact a moment too long. Server room tour, he asked, eyes narrowing slightly. Fascinating place, isn't it? All that valuable intellectual property secured behind a few simple systems. Rebecca stepped back, disengaging from his touch. Simple but effective. Nothing's that effective. Jason smiled thinly. Victor Shaw proved that. He had top-level access for years, used it to download proprietary technology files worth millions. I read about that case. Did you? Jason leaned against the wall, blocking her path slightly. Interesting reading choice for someone in facilities management. Rebecca met his gaze steadily. I like to understand the company I work for, Mr. Miller, including its recent challenges. Admirable. His tone suggested otherwise. Just remember, this place has eyes everywhere. Security cameras, access logs, digital footprints. He straightened. James may trust easily, but the rest of us have learned caution. The warning was unmistakable. Jason Miller was watching her, suspicious of her rapid rise in connection to James. Whether from professional jealousy or genuine concern, he'd made himself an obstacle to Vanessa's demands, and potentially a witness to Rebecca's downfall. Rebecca spent the remainder of the day in a fog of anxiety, reviewing maintenance contracts, while her mind churned through impossible scenarios. By 5 o'clock, she'd reached a decision. She couldn't steal the server data. She couldn't betray James, the company, or her own integrity. She would have to face Vanessa and refuse accepting whatever consequences came. As she gathered her things to leave, her office phone rang. Rebecca Miller. Ms. Miller, this is school nurse Jenkins from Riverside Elementary. Emma had a fall during recess. Her arthritis has flared up severely in her right knee. She's in considerable pain. Rebecca's heart rate doubled. I'll be right there. She rushed to the school, finding Emma in the nurse's office, face pale with pain, knee swollen to twice its normal size. I'm sorry, Mom, Emma whispered through tears. I was just playing soccer. Don't apologize, sunshine. Rebecca gathered her daughter gently. We're going straight to the doctor. At the urgent care center, the doctor examined Emma's inflamed joints with concern. This is a significant flare-up. She needs prescription anti-inflammatories and possibly a steroid injection. Do you have insurance? Yes. The relief of saying that word, of not having to beg for payment plans or samples, almost made Rebecca weep. We're covered through my new job. The treatment was swift and effective. Within hours, Emma's pain had subsided to manageable levels. As she slept that night, medication having pulled her under, Rebecca sat beside her bed, watching her daughter's peaceful face. The health insurance that had saved Emma from hours of agony was directly connected to Rebecca's job at Reynolds Energy. The job Vanessa threatened to destroy if Rebecca didn't comply with her demands. The impossible choice crystallized her integrity or her daughter's well-being. Morning brought no relief, only the certainty that a decision could no longer be postponed. Rebecca called the office, explaining Emma's condition and requesting to work remotely. James himself replied to her email, expressing concern for Emma and assuring Rebecca that family came first. Another kindness, another twist of the knife. By noon, Emma's medication had taken full effect, allowing her to rest comfortably on the couch with books and drawing supplies. Rebecca set up her laptop at the kitchen table, answering emails and reviewing contracts while keeping an eye on her daughter. When her phone rang at 2 o'clock, she knew before checking the caller ID. Time's up, Rebecca. Vanessa's voice was cold. I need that server access by tomorrow or I start making calls. Rebecca closed her eyes, her decision made. I can't do it. Excuse me, I can't get what you want. The security is too tight and I won't compromise my position. Silence stretched across the connection. Then Vanessa laughed, a sound devoid of humor. You misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. Either you get me what I want or Emma loses her mother to jail and you both lose that comfortable new life you're building. I understand perfectly. Rebecca's voice remained steady despite her racing heart. But I won't steal for you anymore. Do what you have to do. She ended the call, hands shaking but mind clear for the first time in months. Whatever happened next would be devastating, but at least she would face it with her integrity intact. 3 hours later, as Rebecca prepared dinner, there was a knock at the door. Emma looked up from her drawing, alarmed. It's okay, sunshine, Rebecca assured her, though her own pulse pounded in her ears. Was it the police already? Had Vanessa wasted no time in exacting revenge? She opened the door to find James Reynolds standing in the hallway, a large paper bag in his arms. I hope I'm not intruding, he said, taking in her startled expression. Linda mentioned Emma was ill. I thought you both might appreciate dinner that doesn't require cooking. Rebecca blinked in confusion. You brought us dinner. James shifted awkwardly, suddenly unsure. It's from Giovanni's, Italian. I can leave it if this is a bad time. No, please come in. Rebecca stepped aside, her mind struggling to reconcile this unexpected kindness with her morning decision to defy Vanessa. Emma's feeling much better. James entered, setting the food on the kitchen counter. Emma waved from the couch, her swollen knee propped on pillows. Mr. Reynolds, did you bring the chess set again? Not tonight, James smiled. I heard you weren't feeling well. Thought you and your mom might like some dinner. Emma beamed. Mom said we could have macaroni, but I bet your food is way better. James laughed, the sound surprisingly youthful. Giovanni makes the best pasta in Austin. As Rebecca set out plates, her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, you've made your choice. Watch the news tomorrow. Your perfect new boss isn't what you think. Rebecca's hands faltered, nearly dropping a glass. Whatever Vanessa had planned was already in motion. And somehow James, oblivious to the threat, stood in her kitchen, serving pasta to her daughter with grandfatherly attention. Are you all right? James asked, noticing her distraction. Rebecca forced a smile. Just tired. It was a long night with Emma. I remember those. James's eyes grew distant. When Olivia was 8, she broke her arm falling from a tree. I spent the night in a hospital chair watching her sleep, promising whatever deity might listen that I'd be a better father if she recovered without complications. Did you keep that promise? The question slipped out before Rebecca could stop it. James's smile turned rueful. For about 3 months. Then work took over again. He handed her a plate. That's the problem with crisis moments. They clarify priorities perfectly, but the clarity fades when the crisis passes. The insight hit uncomfortably close to Rebecca's current situation. Would she maintain her resolve against Vanessa when immediate danger had passed, or would she compromise again when threatened? After dinner, as James prepared to leave, Emma insisted on showing him her latest drawings. Rebecca watched their interaction with conflicted emotions. Here was her daughter forming an attachment to a man who might be destroyed by Rebecca's past actions, or who might be directly responsible for her arrest in the coming days. You have real talent, James told Emma, studying a particularly detailed castle drawing. You should take art classes. Mom says maybe next year if we have money for it. Emma, Rebecca cautioned, embarrassed. James waved away her concern. The company has an education program for employees' children. Art classes would certainly qualify. He turned to Emma. If your mother agrees, I'll have Linda send over the information. After James left, Rebecca helped Emma to bed, her mind racing with contingency plans. If Vanessa exposed her criminal past, she'd lose her job. If Vanessa reported the check fraud to police, she might face jail time. Either way, Emma would suffer. Rebecca sat at the kitchen table long after Emma fell asleep, weighing impossible options. Finally, she made a decision. She would tell James everything: Vanessa's blackmail, her past mistake, the impossible position she'd been placed in. He would fire her, certainly, but perhaps he'd show mercy regarding legal consequences. Perhaps Emma could be spared the worst of it. Tomorrow. She would tell him tomorrow before Vanessa could strike. But morning brought chaos instead of clarity. Rebecca woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Breaking news alerts. Text messages from coworkers. Voicemails from unknown numbers. The headline that dominated her screen sent ice through her veins. Reynolds Energy CEO under investigation for technology theft. Former CTO claims orders came from the top. Accompanying the headline was a photograph of James shaking hands with a Chinese energy executive, the image clearly manipulated to suggest illicit dealings. The article quoted anonymous source close to the company, claiming James had orchestrated the technology theft, blamed on Victor Shaw, using the former CTO as a scapegoat. As Rebecca scrolled through message after message, the picture became clear. Vanessa had launched her attack, but not against Rebecca. She'd gone after James directly with what appeared to be fabricated evidence. The news had broken overnight and the stock was already in freefall. Rebecca's phone rang, Linda calling from the office. Rebecca, thank God you answered. It's madness here. James needs all department heads in the office immediately. Security protocols are being escalated. I'll be there as soon as I can arrange care for Emma. Bring her in if you have to. Just get here. The FBI is involved. The FBI. Rebecca ended the call, her hands shaking. This was Vanessa's revenge, not exposing Rebecca's past, but framing the man who had shown her kindness. And somewhere in that frame was evidence planted during Rebecca's time as Vanessa's unwilling spy. She was no longer just a potential victim of blackmail. She was an accomplice to corporate sabotage and fraud. And the only way to save James Reynolds was to confess her own crimes. Chaos engulfed the Reynolds Energy headquarters. News vans clogged the street below, satellite dishes extending from their roofs like mechanical antennae. Security guards formed a perimeter around the main entrance, checking employee badges with unprecedented scrutiny. Inside the lobby, a team of dark-suited FBI agents conferred in a tight circle, their expressions grim and purposeful. Rebecca arrived with Emma in tow, having found no alternative childcare on such short notice. The security guard recognized her but still insisted on verification, scanning her badge and checking a tablet before nodding them through. Emma clutched her mother's hand, eyes wide at the commotion. "Mom, what's happening?" she whispered as they rode the elevator alone. Rebecca squeezed her daughter's hand. "Mr. Reynolds is in some trouble. People are saying he did something wrong." "Did he?" The simple question hung in the air. Rebecca looked down at her daughter's trusting face. "No, sunshine. I don't believe he did." The executive floor hummed with tense energy. Assistants hurried between offices carrying files and laptops. Phones rang continuously. In the central conference room, visible through glass walls, James Reynolds sat flanked by attorneys, his face carved from stone, as FBI agents presented documents across the table. Linda intercepted Rebecca at the elevator, her usual composure fractured by stress. "Thank God you're here. They're seizing servers and questioning everyone with access." Her eyes flickered to Emma. "Is this your daughter?" Rebecca nodded. "My neighbor couldn't take her. I'm sorry." "No, it's fine. Use the small conference room at the end of the hall. She can stay there while you're in meetings." Linda handed Rebecca a thick folder. "James needs these security logs immediately. They're questioning access points for the last 6 months." Rebecca's stomach twisted. 6 months. Exactly the period she'd been helping Vanessa. "Linda, I need to speak with James privately. It's urgent." "Impossible right now. The FBI has been questioning him since dawn." Linda lowered her voice. "They're claiming he orchestrated technology theft and sold proprietary designs to foreign competitors. They have emails, wire transfers, everything." "But that's not possible." "Of course it's not. Someone's framing him." Linda glanced toward the conference room. "The board's emergency meeting starts in 30 minutes. They're discussing whether to ask for his resignation." Rebecca set Emma up in the small conference room with her books and sketch pad, promising to check on her frequently. "Stay here, okay? Don't wander around." "Is Mr. Reynolds in big trouble?" Emma asked, her perceptiveness uncanny as always. "Yes, but he didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people get blamed unfairly." Emma nodded solemnly. "Like when Tyler said I took his marker, but I didn't." "Exactly like that, just much bigger." Rebecca kissed her forehead. "I need to help prove Mr. Reynolds is innocent." As Rebecca left, she nearly collided with Jason Miller. The CFO's usual polish had slipped. His tie hung loosely and shadows darkened his eyes. "Brought your daughter to the circus." His sarcasm couldn't mask his agitation. "Quite a learning experience." "What's happening, Jason?" He glanced around before pulling her into an empty office. "The FBI has emails from James to Chinese energy executives offering our solar conversion technology for $20 million. They have offshore account numbers, meeting dates, everything." He ran a hand through his hair. "It's detailed enough to be convincing." "But you don't believe it." "I've worked with James for 8 years. He's a lot of things, demanding, sometimes ruthless in business. But he's not a thief. He'd never sell out the company he built." Jason's eyes narrowed. "The timing is suspicious. Victor Shaw gets caught stealing technology, then suddenly evidence appears implicating James in the same crime. Someone's playing a very sophisticated game." Rebecca felt sick. "What can we do?" "The FBI seized all our servers this morning. They're combing through everything: emails, financial records, security logs. If James is being framed, the evidence is in those systems somewhere." Jason checked his watch. "The board meeting starts in 15 minutes. Elizabeth is trying to buy James time, but the stock is in freefall. The pressure to cut him loose is enormous." As Jason left, Rebecca stood frozen, the security logs folder heavy in her hands. Within those pages might be evidence of her own complicity, access codes she'd obtained for Vanessa's security cameras, temporarily disabled during her night cleaning shifts, doors left unlocked for brief periods. Small betrayals that now formed links in a chain of destruction. She had to tell James the truth before the FBI discovered it themselves. But first, she needed to understand exactly what Vanessa had done with the information Rebecca had provided. In the IT department, chaos reigned as FBI technical specialists removed equipment and downloaded files. Rebecca spotted Thomas Chen, the senior security analyst, arguing with a federal agent. "Thomas," she called, pulling him aside, "I need to access the backup security logs, the ones from the redundant system." His eyebrows rose. "Those aren't part of the federal warrant yet. They're stored offline as a fail-safe." "Exactly. Can you get them for me? It's urgent." Thomas hesitated. "You're asking me to access secure files during an FBI investigation." "I'm asking you to help prove James's innocence." Rebecca lowered her voice. The regular logs might have been tampered with. The offline backups would show discrepancies. After a moment's consideration, Thomas nodded. Meet me in server room B in 10 minutes. It's not on the FBI's current search list. Rebecca checked on Emma, finding her absorbed in drawing, then made her way discreetly to the lower-level server room. Thomas was already there, accessing a separate system isolated from the main network. What exactly are we looking for? He asked as his fingers flew across the keyboard. Access anomalies. Times when doors were open or systems accessed outside normal patterns, particularly around James's office in the main server room. Thomas pulled up 6 months of logs, displaying them side by side with the standard security records. There, he said, suddenly pointing to a highlighted section. The main logs show James accessing the server room at 11:42 p.m. on April 18th, but the backup shows no such entry. Rebecca leaned closer. Can you check other dates? March 3rd, March 27th, April 12th. Thomas gave her a curious look, but complied. Each date showed the same pattern. The main security log indicated James accessing sensitive areas after hours, while the backup system showed no activity. Someone altered the main logs but didn't know about the backup system, Thomas said slowly. They created a false trail of James accessing servers when he wasn't even in the building. What about the emails? The FBI claims to have messages from James to Chinese executives. Thomas typed rapidly. Email logs are harder to verify since they traverse multiple systems. But he pulled up another screen. Metadata doesn't lie. If we check the originating IP addresses, after several tense minutes, Thomas sat back. The emails attributed to James didn't come from his computer or any device registered to him. They came from an external system that spoofed his credentials. Rebecca's mind raced. Can you tell where they originated? Not precisely, but they passed through a residential IP block in West Austin. He showed her the address range. Westlake Hills, Rebecca murmured, where Vanessa lived in the mansion she'd received in the divorce settlement. You know something, Thomas observed. Something you're not telling me. Rebecca made a decision. I need copies of all this evidence, and I need you not to mention this to anyone for at least an hour. What you're asking could cost me my job. What's happening to James could cost him his freedom. Please, Thomas. After a moment, he nodded, transferring files to an encrypted drive. 1 hour, then I have to report this to the FBI. That's all I need. Back on the executive floor, Rebecca found Elizabeth Chen emerging from the board meeting, her expression grim. They've suspended him, Elizabeth said without preamble. Pending investigation, the vote was 7-5. It's a frame-up, Rebecca said urgently. I have evidence, but I need to see James first. Elizabeth studied her. He's with his attorneys in his office. FBI agents are stationed outside. I can get you 5 minutes, no more. Thank you. As Elizabeth created a diversion by engaging the FBI agents in discussion about board documents, Rebecca slipped into James's office. He sat behind his desk, surrounded by 3 attorneys in expensive suits. His silver hair seemed to have acquired more gray overnight, and deep lines bracketed his mouth. Rebecca, he looked up in surprise. You shouldn't be here. I need to speak with you privately. It's urgent. The attorneys exchanged glances. Mr. Reynolds is preparing for a federal interview, the oldest one said. Any discussion could be subject to discovery. 5 minutes, James said firmly. Give us the room. Once alone, Rebecca wasted no time. You're being framed by your ex-wife, Vanessa Hartley, and I've been helping her, though not willingly. James stared at her, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. What are you saying? Vanessa blackmailed me. The words tumbled out, relief at unburdening herself, mingling with shame. When Emma was 5, during a medical emergency, I wrote a bad check. It was prosecuted as fraud. Vanessa somehow discovered this and threatened to report me to police if I didn't help her gather information about you and the company. James's face hardened. What kind of information? Access codes, security protocols, documents left on desks. I was on the night cleaning crew. Rebecca placed the encrypted drive on his desk. She used what I provided to create false evidence against you. The security logs showing you accessing servers after hours, the emails to Chinese executives, they're all fabricated. James was silent for a long moment, processing this betrayal. Why are you telling me this now? Because I can't be part of destroying an innocent man. Rebecca met his gaze steadily. When Vanessa demanded access to the most sensitive servers, I refused. I chose integrity over safety. Then she did this, framed you directly instead of exposing me. And you have proof of this fabrication. Rebecca indicated the drive. Thomas Chen helped me compare the main security logs with the offline backups. The discrepancies are clear. The fake emails originated from an IP address in Westlake Hills where Vanessa lives. James picked up the drive, turning it in his fingers. If what you're saying is true, you've committed corporate espionage. You could go to prison. I know. Your daughter would be placed in foster care. I know that too. Rebecca's voice caught. Emma is the reason I did what Vanessa asked. She's also the reason I'm stopping now. I can't teach her integrity while betraying my own. James studied her face, searching for deception and finding none. Finally, he pressed the intercom. Linda asked my attorneys to come back in and find Agent Daniels. I have evidence he needs to see. As the attorneys filed back in, James held Rebecca's gaze. Wait in the conference room. Don't leave the building. The next 3 hours passed in excruciating slowness. Rebecca checked on Emma frequently, finding her daughter blissfully absorbed in creating elaborate castle drawings. Around them, the floor buzzed with activity as FBI agents reviewed the new evidence. Technical specialists analyzed the logs and attorneys conferred in hushed tones. Shortly after noon, Elizabeth found Rebecca in the small conference room. The FBI is expanding their investigation to include Vanessa Hartley, she said without preamble. They've obtained a warrant for her residence and electronic devices. Rebecca exhaled slowly. And James, still suspended, but the board is reconvening at 3. The new evidence has changed the equation. Elizabeth sat across from her. He told me everything, Rebecca. I expected that. What you did was wrong. Elizabeth's tone was measured, neither accusatory nor sympathetic. But coming forward took courage. Will I be arrested? That's not my decision. But if your testimony helps prove James was framed, it will certainly be considered. Elizabeth checked her watch. The FBI wants to interview you formally at 2. I'd advise having an attorney present. After Elizabeth left, Rebecca sat beside Emma, watching her daughter color intricate patterns on a castle turret. Soon this fragile piece would shatter. Soon Emma might be taken from her, temporarily or permanently. The thought opened a chasm of fear in Rebecca's chest. Is Mr. Reynolds still in trouble? Emma asked without looking up from her drawing. Yes, but we're trying to help him. Good. Emma added a tiny flag to a tower. He's nice. He looks sad sometimes, like he's lonely, but he's nice. Rebecca felt tears pressing behind her eyes. The simple wisdom of children seeing through facades to essential truths. Yes, he is. At 1:30, Linda appeared at the conference room door. Ms. Miller, Mr. Reynolds would like to see you in his office. Rebecca kissed Emma's forehead. Stay here, sunshine. I'll be back soon. James's office now held a different energy. The attorneys were gone, replaced by a single FBI agent who stood by the window monitoring but not participating. James himself looked more composed, some of the shadow lifted from his expression. Sit down, Rebecca. He gestured to the chair across from him. Agent Daniels has verified your information. The security logs were definitely altered and the emails were sophisticated forgeries. Have they arrested Vanessa? Not yet, but it's coming. James leaned forward. They've asked me not to disclose details of the ongoing investigation, but I wanted to speak with you before your formal interview. Rebecca braced herself. Here it was the consequences she'd been dreading. I've spoken with the U.S. attorney handling the case, James continued. In exchange for your complete cooperation and testimony against Vanessa, they're willing to grant you immunity from prosecution. Rebecca stared at him, certain she'd misheard. Immunity? But I committed crimes. I helped Vanessa. Under duress and blackmail, James interrupted. And you came forward at significant personal risk. That counts for something. He tapped his desk absently. The decision was also influenced by my personal request and assurance that you acted under extreme pressure to protect your daughter. Relief weakened Rebecca's limbs. I don't know what to say. There's more. James straightened a pen on his desk, a nervous gesture at odds with his usual confidence. The board will reinstate me pending formal clearance by the federal investigation. When that happens, I'll need to rebuild trust in the company. Part of that process will involve personnel changes. Rebecca nodded, resignation settling over her. I understand. You'll need to let me go. Actually, I was going to offer you a promotion. At her surprised expression, James almost smiled. Your insights into our security of vulnerabilities have been educational. I need someone who understands where we're vulnerable and how to address those weaknesses. Someone who values integrity even when it comes at personal cost. You'd still trust me after what I did. Trust is earned through actions, not granted blindly. Coming forward was a significant action. James's expression grew serious. But no more secrets, Rebecca. Complete transparency from this point forward. Of course. Rebecca felt lightheaded with relief and disbelief. What about Emma? What about her? I've involved her in this mess. She's in the building during a federal investigation. James's expression softened slightly. Emma is welcome here anytime. In fact, he hesitated. I have a personal request unrelated to work. Yes. My daughter Olivia called this morning after seeing the news. It's the first time we've spoken in 5 years. A complex emotion crossed his face, pain, hope, uncertainty. She's flying in tonight. Apparently, the thought of her father being arrested was enough to break through her anger. I've invited her to dinner at my home tomorrow evening, and I'd like you and Emma to join us. Rebecca blinked in surprise. Are you sure a family reunion seems private? Having Emma there might help. James looked almost vulnerable. Children have a way of easing tension, and Olivia specifically asked about the little girl who returned the wallet. Apparently, she saw a reference to Emma in an early news report. Before Rebecca could respond, commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, hurried footsteps. James rose from his desk as his office door burst open. Linda stood there, face pale. It's Emma, she gasped. She's gone. Rebecca's world tilted. What do you mean, gone? I checked the conference room 10 minutes ago. She wasn't there. Security is reviewing hallway footage now. Cold fear gripped Rebecca. She wouldn't wander off. She knows to stay put. James was already moving, striding from his office with purpose. Linda locked down the building. No one enters or leaves without verification. Alert security at all exits. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of frantic searching. Security footage showed Emma leaving the conference room alone, heading toward the elevator bank, but no cameras captured her after she entered an elevator. Rebecca retraced her daughter's possible steps, calling her name, checking bathrooms, supply closets, break rooms, anywhere a child might explore or hide. James organized employees into search teams covering every floor methodically. The FBI agents, recognizing a genuine emergency, suspended interviews to assist. But as the search expanded without result, a horrible possibility formed in Rebecca's mind. Vanessa, she said, suddenly interrupting James's conversation with security. Would she take Emma to get back at both of us? James's expression darkened. She's capable of it. He turned to the FBI agent beside him. We need to locate Vanessa Hartley immediately. I believe she may have abducted Rebecca's daughter. Agent Daniels nodded grimly. We already have a team en route to her residence with a search warrant. I'll redirect them to prioritize locating the child. As Rebecca stood paralyzed with fear, her phone rang an unknown number. She answered immediately. Hello, is this Rebecca Miller? A woman's voice unfamiliar. Yes, who is this? My name is Olivia Reynolds. I believe I found your daughter. Rebecca nearly collapsed with relief. Emma, is she okay? Where are you? We're in the coffee shop across from Reynolds Energy. Emma's fine, she's having hot chocolate. She said she saw me from the window and came down because she recognized me from a photograph in her father's office. Rebecca put the call on speaker so James could hear. You're James's daughter. Yes, Olivia's voice softened. Emma said she needed to find me because, and I quote, Mr. Reynolds misses his daughter very much and you should talk to him because he's in big trouble. James made a choked sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Olivia, you're already in Austin. A pause. Hi, Dad, I took an earlier flight. I was actually coming to your office when Emma spotted me. Stay where you are. We're coming down. James's voice was rough with emotion. In the lobby, Rebecca knelt to embrace Emma tightly. Don't ever disappear like that again. I was terrified. I'm sorry, Mom, Emma said contritely, but I saw Mr. Reynolds' daughter from the window and I knew it was important. How did you even recognize her? From the picture on his desk, the one he looks at when he's sad. Rebecca straightened to face Olivia Reynolds properly for the first time. At 28, she had her father's height and bearing with a dark hair and penetrating gray eyes that currently held a mixture of amusement and uncertainty. Your daughter is very persuasive, Olivia said. She marched right up to me and said, You're Olivia and your dad needs you. James approached slowly as if his daughter might vanish if he moved too quickly. Olivia. Dad? Her voice held years of complicated emotions. Emma tells me you're being framed for corporate espionage. It appears so. James stopped a few feet from her, clearly uncertain of his welcome. Well, that's inconvenient. Olivia's attempt at lightness couldn't mask her concern. Mom always said you'd end up in legal trouble someday, but I never thought it would be for something you didn't do. You believe I'm innocent? James asked, his voice carefully neutral. Olivia's expression softened fractionally. Of course I do. You're many things, Dad, but you're not a thief. And you'd never betray the company you built. The moment stretched between them, 5 years of silence and hurt hanging in the air. Then Emma stepped forward, taking James's hand in her small one and Olivia's in the other. "See, I told you she'd help," she said confidently. The simple action broke the tension. James laughed softly, and Olivia's lips curved in a reluctant smile. Rebecca watched as something long broken began the first tentative steps toward repair. The moment was shattered by Agent Daniels approaching rapidly. "Mr. Reynolds, we've located Vanessa Hartley. She was attempting to board a private flight to the Cayman Islands. Agents are taking her into custody now." James nodded. "What about evidence at her residence?" "Preliminary search confirms your suspicions. We've found devices that match the IP signatures of the forged emails and documents related to your company's proprietary technology." "And Victor Shaw, was he working with her?" "We believe so. We're tracking his movements now." As the FBI agent departed, Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Vanessa is behind this. Your ex-wife is framing you for corporate espionage." She shook her head. "You certainly know how to pick them, Dad." "A mistake I've acknowledged many times," James replied ruefully. "Yes, well." Olivia glanced at Emma, who was watching their interaction with undisguised interest. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. Emma tells me we're all having dinner tomorrow night." James looked at Rebecca questioningly. She nodded. "We'd be honored." "Good." Olivia's professional composure cracked slightly. "Because I think we have a lot to talk about. 5 years worth at least." The following evening found Rebecca and Emma at James's Westlake Hills mansion, a modern architectural marvel of glass and stone overlooking the city. Emma, wearing her best dress hastily purchased that afternoon, stared wide-eyed at the soaring ceilings and panoramic views. "It's like a castle," she whispered to Rebecca, "but with more windows." James welcomed them in the expansive foyer, looking more relaxed than Rebecca had ever seen him. The federal investigation continued, but with Vanessa in custody and mounting evidence of her conspiracy, his position as victim rather than perpetrator was increasingly clear. The Reynolds Energy Board had unanimously reinstated him that afternoon. "Olivia's in the kitchen," he said, leading them through the house. "She insisted on cooking. Apparently she took culinary classes in New York." The kitchen, all gleaming stainless steel and marble, was larger than Rebecca's entire apartment. Olivia stood at an island counter chopping vegetables with professional precision. She looked up as they entered, her smile warming at the sight of Emma. "My accomplice has arrived," she said. "Emma, I need someone to taste test the sauce. Think you can handle that?" Emma approached eagerly, and soon the two were absorbed in cooking, Olivia patiently explaining techniques as Emma assisted with safer tasks. Rebecca and James moved to the adjacent living room, watching through the open concept design. "They've bonded quickly," Rebecca observed. James nodded, an expression of wonder on his face. "Olivia was always good with children. She wanted to be a teacher before she decided on law." He turned to Rebecca. "The U.S. attorney called this afternoon. They've formalized your immunity agreement. You'll need to provide testimony, but legally you're clear." Rebecca exhaled slowly. "I still can't believe it." "Believe it." James's voice was firm. "You made a mistake under enormous pressure, then found the courage to make it right. That counts for something in my book. And my job, the promotion stands if you want it, Director of Corporate Security. You've certainly learned where our vulnerabilities lie." His attempt at humor carried no sting. "I'd like that very much." Dinner was a revelation. Olivia proved a talented cook, and Emma a charming dinner companion, her natural curiosity drawing out stories and laughter. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily, skimming over lighter topics as they all tacitly agreed to postpone heavier discussions for another time. As they enjoyed dessert on the terrace overlooking Austin's skyline, Emma asked the question that had clearly been on her mind all evening. "Are you going to live here again, Olivia, with your dad?" A brief silence fell. Olivia glanced at her father, then back to Emma. "I live in New York now, Emma. My job is there." "Oh." Emma looked disappointed. "But you'll visit more, right, because he misses you a lot." James cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Emma, sometimes adult relationships are complicated." "They don't have to be," Emma replied with a child's directness. "If you love someone and they love you, you should be together, or at least talk on the phone." Olivia's expression softened. "You're right, Emma. It doesn't have to be complicated." She turned to her father. "I can work remotely part of each month. My firm has been pushing for more client development in Texas anyway." James's face registered surprise, then cautious hope. "You do that? I think it's time." Olivia met her father's gaze directly. "We've lost 5 years. I don't want to lose any more." The simple statement, oh, hung in the air, a door opening between father and daughter. James reached across the table, tentatively covering Olivia's hand with his own. Neither do I. Later, as Rebecca and Emma prepared to leave, James walked them to the door. Thank you for coming tonight. I think it helped having you both here. Emma has that effect on people. Rebecca smiled. She cuts through pretense. A valuable skill. James knelt to Emma's level. Thank you for finding my daughter yesterday, Emma. That was very brave, even if it scared your mom. Emma beamed. You're welcome. When do we play chess again? Soon. James straightened. Surely I was thinking. This house has a pool that's rarely used. With summer temperatures the way they are, perhaps you'd both like to come swimming sometime. Really? Emma's eyes widened. Mom, can we? Rebecca nodded. That would be lovely. As they drove home through the warm Austin night, Emma fell asleep in the back seat. Rebecca glanced at her in the rearview mirror, this extraordinary child whose simple act of honesty had triggered such profound changes in all their lives. A text message chimed on her phone. At a stoplight, she checked at Olivia. Thank you for raising such an amazing daughter. She's helped heal something I thought was permanently broken. Lunch next week, just us girls. Rebecca smiled, typing back a quick affirmative before continuing home. The road ahead still held challenges, testimony against Vanessa, a new position with greater responsibility, navigating these unexpected new relationships. But for the first time in years, the future held promise rather than dread. 6 months later, Reynolds Energy held its annual summer picnic in Zilker Park. Employees and their families gathered under sprawling oak trees, enjoying barbecue games and music. The company had weathered the storm of scandal and emerged stronger, its stock recovering as James implemented new security protocols and transparency initiatives. Rebecca, now firmly established as Director of Corporate Security, oversaw the event's safety measures while enjoying the festivities. Emma, her arthritis in remission thanks to consistent medical care, played soccer with other employees' children, her laughter carrying across the park. She's thriving, James observed, joining Rebecca at a picnic table. The new treatments are working well. Wonderfully. The specialist you recommended has made all the difference. James nodded, watching Emma with evident affection. Over the months, his role in their lives had evolved from employer to friend to something more complex, a blend of mentor, protector, and surrogate family member. He taught Emma chess strategy every Wednesday afternoon, attended her school science fair, and provided quiet support whenever needed. Olivia's flight landed an hour ago, he said. She's coming straight from the airport. 3 weekends in 1 month, that's a record. James smiled. The Austin office is keeping her busy, though I suspect other factors might be influencing her visits. Rebecca followed his gaze to where Thomas Chen, the IT security analyst, was setting up a volleyball net. Olivia and Thomas had developed a close friendship that showed signs of deepening into something more. Life takes unexpected turns, Rebecca mused. Indeed it does, James hesitated, then continued more quietly. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to ask you something. Rebecca turned to him, curious. Yes, the house feels empty when Olivia's not there. Too big for one person. James focused on the distance, a man unaccustomed to personal vulnerability. I've been thinking about downsizing perhaps to something in central Austin. More convenient for work. That makes sense. The Clarkson property near Pemberton Heights just came on the market. 5 bedrooms, good security, excellent school district. He glanced at her briefly. The guest house would make a perfect art studio for Emma. Rebecca stilled as his meaning became clear. James, are you suggesting a practical arrangement, he said quickly. Separate spaces but shared resources. Emma would have access to the pool for her physical therapy. You'd have a shorter commute. I'd have company occasionally. He cleared his throat. Just something to consider. Before Rebecca could respond, Emma ran up, breathless and flushed with excitement. Mom, Olivia's here, and she brought her friend Thomas. Across the park, Olivia waved, making her way toward them with Thomas beside her. James stood, his face lighting with a father's joy at seeing his daughter. Rebecca watched him go, considering his unexpected proposal. Not romance, they weren't, there might never be. But family. A different kind of family, built on choice rather than obligation. That possibility felt right in a way she couldn't articulate. Emma tugged her hand. Come on, Mom, they're waiting for us. As they crossed the park together, Rebecca thought about the wallet Emma had found nearly a year ago. How a simple act of honesty had triggered a cascade of events that transformed all their lives. The $5,000 inside would have temporarily eased their financial struggles, but Emma's decision to return it intact had yielded something far more valuable, a future built on integrity, connection, and second chances. "Everything okay, Mom?" Emma asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Rebecca squeezed her daughter's hand. "Everything's perfect, sunshine, absolutely perfect." Ahead, James and Olivia waited beneath a sprawling oak tree, the afternoon sun filtering through leaves to dapple them in light and shadow. Beside them stood a chess table, pieces already arranged for a game. And beyond, the Austin skyline rose against a clear blue Texas sky, a city of possibilities, of new beginnings, of stories still unfolding. Emma broke away, running ahead to claim her place at the chess table. James looked up, his eyes meeting Rebecca's across the distance, a look of question, possibility, and patient hope. Rebecca smiled and quickened her step. The future was waiting, and for once she was eager to meet it.